Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome back to Paranormal Connections radio show. Tonight I'm flying solo. George had to work out of town, so he was not going to be able to make it in time. But that is actually okay. I am used to hosting the show alone, so it is not a problem. And actually, I'm excited to actually be doing the solo show tonight because I have the pleasure of interviewing an actually very, very close friend of mine. She actually used to be part of my paranormal and UFO research team, and since then has spread her wings and done major, major things in the UFO field. So this week, our guest is Laurie McDonald, and we're going to be talking all kinds of things. We're going to talk about the regression hypnotherapy that she does for abductees and contactees. We're going to be talking about the Mandela Effect, because boy, we're seeing a lot more now. And we also want to talk with her about her new miniseries, Alien Files Reopened. Seems like it's going to be something really cool to watch. But Lori's a respected clinical hypnotherapist, hypnotherapist and an earnest researcher of consciousness. She's known for pioneering work in the mental health through founding of True You Hypnotherapy here in Sacramento. Her profound expertise has not only facilitated transformative changes in individuals via tailored hypnotherapy sessions, but has also made her sought after voice on television. And you probably have seen her on a lot of television, including Gaia, speaking at events all over the place. The lady does everything, and it's been so amazing to watch her grow. It went from me meeting her at one of our meetups, me doing a reading for her at her house, her becoming part of our team. She was doing her hypnotherapy and has just blown up since then. And she is well sought after. She has gone all over the world speaking and sharing her information. So tonight, we want to make sure that anybody who has questions, make sure to put them in chat. I see everybody is getting in there. Um, hey, La. Hey, Stanley. Hey, Corey. We are bringing Lori on right now.
Hey,
Hey, Lori. Hey,
Lori.
Michelle. Oh my gosh, it's like I look back and we had been friends for so long, and it just
Yeah,
to
over a
watch,
decade.
yes, and to watch how you have just flourished in this field. It is amazing watching you
Thank you.
travel, you speak, everything. And then, I get to see that professional side, but I also have the personal relationship. So, we've had tons of birthday parties, holiday parties, our team, I'm the party setter upper queen, I think.
Yeah, you gotta live, It's okay to be dedicated to a craft, but everybody has to blow off a little steam sometime.
Absolutely. Corey says, you look great, Lori. The world travel has served you well.
Thank you, Corey.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. There's so much that I want to talk about with you, but I want to start out like you would be surprised on the show how much I mention you when I'm talking about abductees, things like that, because, you know, many people come to me because they want to, be on the show with some very interesting experiences. And I love hearing about all of them, and but many times people kind of like me, are having experiences that they just don't really understand. And, they do know about regression. I think that people started really like in Close Encounters. I think like towards the end, I think that's when people started like seeing how regression could bring back, memories. But I will tell you, it was the most traumatizing movie to me. And when it was mentioned to me that I should go to you and have me regress, I was like, absolutely not. No, 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 no. Anything that I'm not supposed to know, I don't know for a reason, and I don't need to know it.
Yeah. Not always. Sometimes in that moment, we don't know how to respond to either something that's paranormal. Hi, Dev. And the mind or the subconscious, if it doesn't have a reference point or hadn't had that experience before, you just don't know what to do. You can go a little bit blank. The information sort of falls into a hole, a little bit of a dissociation there. And then we have to tap back into that to find out why we're not understanding or remembering entirely the experience. And that's only part of it, because really, when we're facilitating a regression session, the subject has to feel completely safe. They have to allow the process of exploration, and that emotional energy needs to be matched, right? So that we can get them to the place of the experience, but just create enough distance that they're not reliving it. We don't want anyone in trauma or paralyzed, not knowing what to say or do. We want to create just enough distance so they can articulate the experience. And then during the session, can heighten the senses so that they can perceive the situation either through the olfactory sense. I'll have them focus just on that, like heighten the listening and see if you can hear anything or smell. And bringing in any of the other senses triggers the memory. It begins to unfold and we see what happened. But then there are other questions that just opens the door to, well, why you? And it opens the door to, what does that mean for me? Like, what is my next step? How do I incorporate this experience into my life? Or is it just some anomalous experience that happened that, is a one off and doesn't mean anything? But it's generally not the case. I mean, once you begin to have some form of either heightened intuition, psychism, you attract or resonate into a particular frequency, whether it's interdimensional, paranormal, extraterrestrial. I mean, there has to be two resonating points to create some form of communication. So it's where our energy, where we move our consciousness, that's what we begin to resonate with. You can expand or move the mind wherever you want to. Consciousness is wherever you place your awareness. And in regression, we can place that awareness where it needs to be and then ask some super hard questions, right? Um, Perhaps about the person's spirituality. Like, what does this mean to them? Are they going to question their religion? Seeing or having a near death experience or having a full blown apparition experience or some other form of communication with a non-human being, whether it's extraterrestrial or a shadow being or whatever it happens to be, we have to ask ourselves, what does this mean? What does it mean to me? Why am I communicating or aware of that type of being? And what's my next step? So it's important always to ask all of the questions so that we can put the subject, the experiencer, into a higher place of understanding and a place of more empowerment. So they feel personally empowered, because it seems to me, and you may have experienced this too, Christina, that once you begin to have experiences, it's just like that light has been switched on and all the moths now are coming to the flame. And you really have no idea what you're picking up at that time, because whatever you're resonating into, it isn't a singularity. It's a broadband spectrum of life, just like if some foreign entity were to sense or scan into the earth realm, they could pick up life as small as a microorganism to a human or a gorilla or whatever. It's like the broadband of life. So you never really know. So in the paranormal world, believe there's a difference between a ghost and a spirit. I think the spirit is more of a representation of the consciousness of the deceased, and one that might not yet have fully passed over. In Buddhism, we have 180 days in the etheric body to sort of settle the emotional energy, to make internal amends, to accept a crossing over. I mean, sometimes in certain temples, if a loved one in the family dies, you're not even allowed back in temple for those 6 months in case their spirit follows. Unlike a
Hmm.
ghost, right? So a spirit has a destiny. It's going to continue, it's going to move on. Some particular ghosts, they started out as spirits, right? And they didn't move on either because of mistrust, fear of their own behavior in the world, fear of some form of negative consequence. And they literally drive themselves insane, creating hauntings or forcing energy or poltergeist energy that's attracted to, like, high emotional hormonal energy of our youth. In teens, they seem to have a lot of experiences in the paranormal, but it's such a vast, interconnecting subject, both the paranormal and the UAP or UFOs, because people have both experiences. And
Right.
yeah, you get a UFO experience, and then 2 weeks later, see some orb floating through your room, or a apparition of someone you might even know or think you know.
No, I absolutely agree with that. And I think that, growing up at a time where there wasn't a whole lot of information, I always saw UFOs. Didn't know really what they were or why I saw them at the time. Sorry. I also could see, spirits and communicate with them. So, oh, Eric is real. I'm sorry. Hold on.
It's Eric the healer. Hi, Eric.
So I think that, and then when I would have my precog dreams, I never really understood them. I just thought this would, I mean, again, you just go into being born into it and it just happens. And you
Mm,
eventually know you're not like everybody else, but you don't have anybody to guide you or tell you what the reasonings are or the purpose for it or what you do with it or any of that. So, the main thing that got me into the paranormal and with UFOs was to try to find some answers. And I always felt it was connected. But when I first got into radio, it was very separate.
mm,
The UFO people didn't want to hear nothing about paranormal. Paranormal didn't want to hear anything about UFOs and aliens. And that was just how it was. And, now it's much different. I guess my question to you is, do you see or find that many of people that you regress or that come to you have experiences in both areas, as well as maybe even witnessing or seeing Bigfoot or cryptids or different things?
yeah, it's really funny. So demographically, both in age and location, I'm getting a segment of the population that's between, say, like 50 and 70, who have
Mm.
had earlier experiences. And, there's so many strong commonalities about being in the car. You decide to take the back road, it's dark, you see the light, then the car is stopped. Then you're directed off the road onto a little road that's going to take you into an even darker place. The last couple of months, I've heard this almost identical account a dozen times,
Wow.
and all within the same uh, time frame. It was like late 60s to mid 70s. So, like through 1968 to like 1975 in the south in the south and in sort of the tri-state area in the Michigan, Ohio area, also in the south, Alabama, Mississippi. And
Oh,
people feel that, some of the things, there could be 3 people in the car, and all 3 of them are gonna tell me their story a little bit different. And primarily, all 3 of them are sitting first off in 3 different locations. Their perspective could be skewed by something or just their visual ability, if they're lower, looking around, looking whatever. We're always gonna get some different information, but it's important, though, to be able to just sift through it, to find the commonalities, and then we can begin to create an agenda based on the eyewitness account. So I interview people before I regress them. I ask the right questions. I want to hear their responses because it's really going to help me see who they might have dealt with. And that's going to help me ask the right questions to get them where they need to be. Because, as you know, it's quite the melting pot of stuff that can happen outside
right.
of stuff that people think happened and didn't because they were under some form of drug or alcohol or psychotic break or some other form of auditory or hallucinogen, or doesn't matter. Still, I don't want to negate the fact that that could delegitimize any of their experiences, because it is being brought to my attention, other people's research with ayahuasca and other spiritual drugs that have helped open an aspect of the brain that increases the vibration. So they begin to resonate and they feel or see or experience a whole other dimension, or realm is the best way to say it. And again, see, that's a way many people have said they've experienced extraterrestrials.
Yeah, again, I'm encountering more people as well in the paranormal that are all of a sudden feeling comfortable enough to come to me because they're people that I've known for a long time
Mhm.
and divulging that, oh, in the past I've seen a craft or something has happened, but I don't think anybody would believe me. All these kinds of things. And again, I completely get it because that's exactly where, I was. So I get it. It's especially when these things like just start to come to the surface and, you start to like wonder, oh my gosh, what is going on? And you have no idea. It, it is sometimes I have found it hard, after I had my regression to really come forward and even talk about like my experiences and things like that. Um, so I get that just like you said before, you're really looking for people that you can trust to go to with this information, and I guess just for the feedback and the support because they've come to me and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's how I bring you up all the time. Like, oh, this might help you, and immediately people say, oh my gosh, regression, no, that like will bring all the trauma back if it's blocked out, and then like, no, I don't think so because the way she does it, it's completely
Yeah.
different, and so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, we
very
don't want
interesting.
anybody re-traumatized. I mean, that
Right?
really would defeat the purpose, because the whole idea in all
Yeah,
of these experiences is that we reduce the
hey, Jackie.
fear, that we create Jackie! That we have this opportunity to minimize the fear, which does affect our hormonal energy and the secretions and emissions that are even within our own electromagnetic field. So being able to have some emotional stability, to be able to be calm and relaxed, even though it is difficult. See, here's the thing, Christina. A lot of people who have had experiences and aren't entirely comfortable talking about them, whether they're extraterrestrial, but mostly extraterrestrial for this. Here we are in space. The illusion that you think you're on the ground is simply that. We are in space with a plethora of other cosmic energies, including radiations that sustain our particular biosphere. The Earth, the Sun, the Moon, and many other planetary bodies create this very specific biosphere that allows us to live on our planet. So we think that when we look up and see through the filters of atmospheres a blue sky, that it's capped somehow. But no, we are in space. Other people live in space as well. Other extraterrestrials, though, often live in their planet as opposed to on their planet. We are in a Goldilocks particular area that allows us to do that. But we are in a continuous state of expansion as the universe always is. So those electromagnetic fields and cosmic energies are changing, and they do have an effect on the consciousness of the humans. Right now, more than any other time in history, it is important for us to learn how to control our mind, how to understand our emotional energy, to have an internal equanimity so that we have a form of alignment. We have to be able to be kind with our thoughts, because some of the Gaia theory states that when the Earth reaches a population of 10 billion, we'll create a quanta of energy and take a evolutionary step forward. That at this time, we can see in the cosmology of the universe where the Earth will be. And we think that we'll be receiving a radiation that will decalcify the sheath over the pineal gland, allowing everyone full telepathic ability. That telepathic ability has to be balanced, otherwise, our thoughts can hurt people. And we won't create that evolutionary step if we're still in the mind frame of negativity, deliberate negativity through our own insecurities that create harm to others. So the earth is being shaken up right now. You got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. So in the end, it will be good. But right now, we have to catch ourselves, catch our thoughts, and ask ourselves, is this who I want to be? Is this how I want to be? I mean, what are the steps that I need to take towards a higher human attainment? Then you see the energy that we begin to resonate then will be the entity or energy that we attract. And what we want to move into is a higher vibrational frequency, one that will allow an easy transitional thought process so that we can feel empowered enough to allow other people to be different or think differently. And everyone's entitled to their own journey, their own experiences. But I feel there is a responsibility, a duty among the humans to question these experiences, to see what they mean, and begin to elevate ourselves collectively. I mean, is it so difficult? Well, actually, there are some difficulties in working together because there seems to be a social political agenda creating division among the humans, a deliberate push to prevent us from moving towards that magic number of 10 billion, where we will at that point be able to cosmically interact and exchange idea, even goods perhaps, with extraterrestrials. We will be able to level the playing field. Right now, many of the people who are being abducted, as they say, or have off planet experiences, those experiences are because of their vibrational energy. They're trying to level up, but at the same time, on our beautiful planet, we have war and have had war for a long time, and how easy to pit us against each other by triggering our wounds. We cannot fall for that again. This time it's important, very important, because through the expansion of the universe begins the ascension into fourth dimensional consciousness thinking and understanding, which is the chronological procession of the essence of the human, the being. It is our next step. But we can't have that very specific freedom because those negative emotional thoughts that are based in fear and insecurity have a gravitational pull, an actual gravitational pull that draws us, a density, a heaviness, brings us right back into this third dimensional reality that is indeed out of balance. So perhaps some of these experiences that people have can open our eyes, enlighten us, allow us to see that the human is a very powerful being. Everything around us we created through our thoughts. Hi, Eddie. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
We get this great chance right now. We have
Well,
to
I have a
level
quick
up.
question because, again, we've always known that when it was just television, right, and media that way, it was very easy to manipulate how people thought and
Mhm.
make divides and things like that. But now we've
Yeah.
got social media where everybody's participating. Like, not back in the day, like not everybody was watching the news, right? So, but now everybody, every age, is monitoring everything. You can go on Facebook, TikTok, whatever. You can see every scroll and see everything that's going on in the world. But a lot of it I am seeing is, again, making people take sides, very splitting things up, very negative, really kind of turning people, energy down. And even more so, I'm starting to, even myself, feel an abundance of energy that does not seem positive, and it seems to be affecting not only me but everybody. I mean, I've had, I am not me at times. I have been, went into, deep depression. It's affected my health. I have, had suicidal thoughts, just all kinds of things that they're very real, and I'm very present when it happens. But it's also, I know that is not me. That is not how I feel. That's not even how I think. And I felt like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? But I'm talking to more people, and more people are feeling that way too. Do you think that, like, with all of the projects like with CERN and just in weather manipulation, just all these different things that are happening, do you think that our government could be trying to kind of suffocate that positive energy to be able to ascend to the next level?
Short answer, yes, but let me elaborate.
Okay, absolutely,
Right.
because I'm very
Yeah.
interested.
First off, we're all bathed in EMFs, right? And these electromagnetic fields and emissions that are coming from many different things. So basically, we're talking about radiation.
Right.
Radiation can have a detrimental effect on our DNA, our cells, but more importantly, at this point, on our thought processes. There is subliminal messages that your mind and body are picking up and processing outside of your conscious awareness. There is energies that can be projected into your mind through psychotronics, radionics, voice to skull communications, synthetic telepathy. For the listeners out there who aren't familiar with that, uh, Google synthetic telepathy and see that this is a neurotechnology warfare that we have been using for quite some time to send negative energies on people directly into their mind. So, just like you have a thumbprint that identifies only you or me, we all have a very unique energy signature that identifies only you or me. And so, through electronic harassment and other forms of psychotronics and radionics, there are people who are picking up these negative signals and acting on them. In my own private practice at the clinic, I've seen a huge increase in suicidal ideation. I've noticed an increase in depression and anxiety. This started after COVID. At that time, you have to understand once again, when people are throwing off their balance, off their center, they are weakened. When we don't know what is real, what is not real, we are weakened. When we don't know who to trust, we are weakened. When we are afraid, we are weakened. And we have to combat this. We have to step up and learn how to master our own mind, how to control our own thoughts, and doing just like what you did. Ask yourself that question. Is this really me? Would I really think that? Is this my truth? You're going to find more often than not that is not your truth. That is a moment of weakness. Now, people do have moments of weakness and people do have serious suicidal ideation. And just for the record, if at any time and anyone out there listening does have that, there are 1-800 suicide numbers. Maybe you can
Absolutely.
put that up on the screen later for anyone who might
Yes,
need those
absolutely.
resources. You're not alone, and there are people out there who care, people who love you, and people who want you to hit your highest level and do your very best. Everybody knows that in our communities of paranormal and UFO, there's a lot of infighting and backbiting. I my I've always just disengaged from that. I just step back. I don't fight because I don't want to engage in that energy because it draws you down. When they get people fighting with each other, all of their energies get drawn down. And so somewhere, someone, some entity, and I mean either a huge entity through, the military industrial complex or actual extraterrestrial entity, is controlling this. The humans are a little bit out of control right now. But we do see what we need to do to master that. And we do have to become aware of the self. And we have to ask ourselves a lot of the right questions and just do a gentle intake. Just be honest. I'm this, I'm that. I need this, I need that. And it's okay, because everything has a reason. There's always cause and effect. There's cause and effect. And we can just simply accept that things that happen to us, that in trauma, they're not a representation of us. Things that traumatize us or traumas that afflicted upon us outside of our power, outside of our youth, outside of our age or experience or knowledge, just because we're little or kids or we don't know. Those are circumstances of our life, not an indicator of our potential, of what we can be, because it's really from this moment forward. Again, the way of the universe is to move forward and to expand. We have a good idea where we come from, but more importantly, we really need to look forward. We have to have a solid 21st century forward thinking, emotional, mental energy collectively so that we can elevate. Because the truth is, we're better than this. All of us. We all have a great opportunity to be there for each other. And we are better than how we're represented. But through social media, like you point out, there is all of this division, all of these groups. See what happens when people are like that, we get a inferior or a superior complex. And when we think we're better than somebody, we want to push our ways on them. When we don't think we're good enough, then we feel hatred or resentment towards that. And the truth is, we're all, the same but different. And that's okay. We're all going to be experiencing the same things at different times. And it's really about now moving forward to collectively without, say, the influence of social media or create our own influence or our own social media, that allows people to express themselves honestly without criticism or judgment. And that's how we have to look at ourselves. We have to do that evaluation. We have to accept it. You cannot change what you cannot accept. Just accept the crap, the good, the bad, the indifferent. Just accept it. It is what it is. Once you accept it, it's already destigmatized. It's already diminished some and less painful because you can accept it. And then you can begin to develop and change and create moving forward every single day.
I think that's great advice for sure. I'm getting a few questions about the Mandela effect, and they're asking, has anything changed over the last few years? Because
Yeah,
this person is actually, when I had you on years ago, we were talking about the Mandela effect, and he's saying he saw the last show that I had you on. We talked about the Mandela effect, and has anything
cool.
changed over the years? So, first of
Hmm.
all, I had a bunch of people who I was talking to, and they were asking, what is the Mandela effect? Now, I would think at this point, pretty much everybody would know. I was shocked that there's a lot of people who don't know. I said, you need to go to Google and you need to go Google what is the Mandela effect and some of the, the different types of that they have out there that, because again, this is a huge topic, especially like in the conspiracy theorist,
And
genre.
it's worldwide too.
Right.
It's not,
Yes.
um, and then, just for the record, the Mandela is a fact. A fact is, some people believe it's the misremembering of certain historical events, objects, TV shows, or even toys. They remember them one way, and a whole segment of society remembers them a different way. The first ones, and the very obvious ones, were the Berenstain Bears.
Right.
And, just for the record, I did read those books to my children, and I was conscientious of the fact that I wanted to pronounce it correctly, and I didn't know if it was Berenstein or Berenstein because of the way it was spelled. The Berenstain that they have, well, that was never even an option. So to me, and many other people just don't really see it that way. So there is the possibility that yes, CERN and the large particle collider, the Hadron Collider, is smashing these atoms, trying to recreate the Big Bang theory, and to try to see what might happen. And some people think that they may have created a tear or a rip between parallel worlds, and there's a little overlapping of bleed through. On a more insidious note, the possibility exists that perhaps some type of psychological operations, a government psyops, is just trying to see exactly how much they can get away with by changing history before our very eyes. As we know, history is changed all the time, and history is written by the victor, one might say. So the facts are never exactly accurate. Now, I do believe that there's a extraordinarily high probability of parallel universes that are all three-dimensional in nature. And I do think that reincarnation plays a role in parallel universes, that we come back into another third-dimensional reality, not specifically perhaps this Earth, or one might say this timeline. So the parallel universes could look like timelines. So could there be merging, a bumping, a bleed through that changes the consciousness, or the memory of some and not others? I think that is possible. Is it possible that there's a psyops? That is too, because we do see that the government has done a lot of things to sway the entire social structure of the American people, from food to education to belief system. And it has been brought to my attention that some three-letter agencies have confided in me that their job was to hoax UFO sightings on foreign territory, so that that government would feel threatened by a force that they couldn't contend with, and would have to call upon the superpower of the United States. This is a political maneuvering. So it is not outside of their bag of tricks. That's all
Could
I'm
it be
saying.
maybe a little of both?
Yeah, well, then there's that too. They could take advantage of it,
Yeah,
and exploit it, and begin to add on changes, and there were changes that have been very upsetting to people. Not so much, the movie taglines or things that in that nature, but more within the religious texts of the Bible,
mm,
where there people remember things like lying with, I believe it's a lion and a lamb, and apparently that never happened. Like there's no such thing. That's not in that, and it just doesn't exist. There's a
yeah,
lot of words that have sort of changed. So the Mandela effect, it is difficult to wrap your mind around, but then again, it opens the door to one other possibility, and that is a simulated reality, that these might be what some people would refer to as a glitch in the matrix. Truth be told, scientifically, mathematically, we can measure the entire universe in strings, beautiful strings of ones and zeros, and we can interpret that in computer code. And our universe is written in computer code. That's a fact. However, it is not the only way to interpret it. So we can, you know, open our minds to the idea that maybe there's a overlord, or maybe some middle management made a mistake and we have glitches in the matrix. And people have provided some quite interesting Mandela effects. The fruit of the loom, having the cornucopia. I do
right,
remember the cornucopia. Not
absolutely.
having a cornucopia doesn't make any sense. Of course, the Looney Tunes, I do remember it being spelled like a cartoon because it predated iTunes. And so why would it
Right.
have been tune as in music, right? So there are some things that,
Jiffy peanut
like,
butter.
oh, which one?
Jiffy peanut butter. Now they say it was never Jiffy. It was just always Jif.
Well, that one could be true. And it also could be because Skippy sounds a lot like Jiffy. And the commercials at the time were like, choosy mothers choose Jif,
Jif. Yeah, they
right?
did say that. Yeah, no, that is true.
Yeah, choosy mothers choose Jif, and I think it wasn't choosy mothers choose Jiffy. And so there's going to be some, times where there are misrememberings or very natural mistakes that collectively people would do. And so we have to go through the process of elimination and see which ones. The Oscar Mayer
Yeah.
hot dogs. I do remember it because I remember it differently. But I've always been a reader. I started reading at a really young age. I might have been a little OCD. I read every sign, that went by as a kid. I read everything, I read books outside of my age range. I read everything that I could read. And I would focus in on stuff that I read and like imprint it in my mind. And I do remember certain things like Curious George having a tail.
Yeah, me too. I also remember uh, the evil queen, the mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest of them all? But I think they say it's actually like magic mirror on the wall. That is absolutely not what it used to say.
Yeah,
They
well,
used to,
that's never how it was portrayed in America. It was always mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all. And the mirror would go, it's no longer you. No.
yeah, right.
I think in Europe and in some text, it was magic mirror on the wall.
See, maybe,
And
that they, doing things differently in different, country, maybe gives, I don't know. Sometimes it makes me question I'm like, oh, I remember it was like the Publishers Clearinghouse with Ed McMahon. I 100% as a kid remember watching the watching them bring the checks and all that kind of stuff. Now they said that never happened, and I'm like, what are you talking
Well,
about?
luckily right now, Christina, there's still some clips on YouTube of Johnny Carson joking around with Ed McMahon about the big check.
Oh,
And so that, in fact, and the one that bothered me was Sex in the City, not
yeah,
Sex and the City. Um,
yeah.
I mean,
Like, where
I
did that
remember
come
the
from?
first time I noticed that, and I thought, what, who messed that up? But then you can look at again old clips of award shows because they won whatever award you get for TV, I don't know, an Emmy maybe.
Right, I think
Um,
so.
it's not my thing, but very clearly, each and every time that show won, it is articulated sex in the city. And then Febreze, literally, I had to do like a backdoor deep dive into the US Patent Office records to find hundreds and hundreds of documents on just on the product Febreze. But I did find documents that did have the double E. And I do have those documents, and it did have a double E. And even the Coca-Cola dash, that weird squatty thing that they're using now, I remember in some of the more 50s, even 40s, it was more of a little swirly between Coke and Cola, not this
Oh,
upper to the right, squared off, wide. I don't even know what it is. It's not even a real thing. I asked the guy one time driving the Coke truck, what's this between Coke and Cola? He goes, well, the graphics probably had to be squeezed. And I went, really?
oh,
No.
really? Like that's
But when I pointed it out, he was like, "Oh yeah, it doesn't look right." He said, "Yeah, they must have squeezed the graphics, and that's why that's what the symbol now looks like." But so yeah, things can change before your very eyes. Also, another way to throw people off, isn't it? The Pokemon at the Pikachu with the black tail. In East
Mhm.
Sacramento, there's a man who every single year puts out a ridiculous amount of Disney and cartoon characters. And every single year, his Pokemon had a black tip on the tail. And they say that that didn't exist for people who were into that. I wouldn't know for sure, but I do know for sure that he always painted it that way, and he must have got that somewhere. And all of his stuff was done by hand. He was an incredible artist, and in fact, it's still there.
Well,
Drive
one
by
of my biggest ones was Shazam, and again, I watched that with Sinbad. I definitely knew that that existed, and then they just wiped that out. Funny thing is that I actually knew somebody who actually had a VHS tape that their parents had kept way back then. It was just in a box or whatever, and she was going after her parents as she was going through and found this VHS tape of the movie. So I mean, I don't think anybody back then was actually buying or renting it. I mean, but I mean, I remember seeing it. So it's interesting though that you can go online for a lot of these things, and what you're reading is, contrary to what the Mandela, it'll say, "Oh no, this didn't exist," and it does. It sometimes it makes you question, like, "Am I remembering this
Well, I
wrong?"
mean, I think the Star Wars one for people my age whose kids were really into it. Definitely, when my son was a little boy, he would run around and cup his hands over his nose and mouth and make
Yes,
the noise and do, Luke, I am your father. And apparently, the line is, no, I am your father.
that
And
happened.
I don't know. That's not what anybody said. That's not, the way. So are these Mandela effects? Possibly. Um, and there is a lot of evidence to support that there has been some form of change. And that the one constant in the universe is
Wow,
states
that's
that
very,
everything will change. To what degree, who knows? But
very,
certainly.
very. Well, let's talk about your mini series that you did. I am so interested to hear about that.
Yeah, it was a huge honor for them to hire me to do that. Uh, the show reopens old files, but they're being researched by people who are actually researchers now and not just some commentary that's rehashing the same old thing. We're finding new evidence or pointing out stuff like maybe in the Washington flap. There's some pretty obvious things, you don't scramble jets for weather inversion. There are things that people weren't pointing out at the time that the experts in this series were able to do. It was wonderful to do it, and very good opportunity to bring forth stuff so that the people can get the truth. The truth isn't always going to be what you want it to be. It's not always going to say, oh, yeah, they were, lying about this or that. But what you will see, though, in this particular series is us outing the government and government agencies and pointing out where they created the manipulations as opposed to more authentic UFO experiences that they tried to diminish or suppress or create some other nonsensical story about, such as swamp gas or a weather balloon, which we've all heard just one too many times. So we don't have any swamp gas or weather balloons in this mini series. This, trust me when I tell you, I poured hours and hours of research. I worked very hard on this show, and every case that we reopened, really, we did go through with a fine tooth comb, and only to present the evidence as truth to the best of our ability. And I do find that of all of the shows that I've done some for Discovery, some, I think Corey and Eric were probably both in that show. That you see that they were listening in tonight. Out of all the shows, I did a great one for 75th anniversary of Roswell. I've done some paranormal stuff on Tubi. I think it's The House in Between. Out of everything, this particular series, Alien Files Reopened, has the highest level of production I have ever seen. They really have created one of the best shows, and so I'm quite proud of it. It's airing on Blaze TV right now in Europe, doing quite well because we're getting the emails, but it will be airing here soon. You can watch it if you have like a VPN, and then you
Oh, okay.
can then your VPN, you can say you're in, England and get the shows that are playing there. I guess people do that. I don't know
Gotcha.
if you're supposed to, but that's what you can do with your VPN. You bounce yourself around. I travel, I always use a VPN, so
Right.
even if it looks like I'm in when I was in China, my computer would say I was in LA.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I know a lot of people use the VPNs as well. Um,
Yeah, well, you
from
can use them for
Instagram,
free TV.
yeah, exactly, right? From Instagram, I have Alexis, and she says, I know you spoke about depression, anxiety, and suicidal tendencies. Would this be something that would be helped by getting regression?
Absolutely. Like I say, a lot of my work is in trauma. I specialize in trauma, inner childhood trauma. That most depression and anxiety that somebody's experiencing now could have started that in earlier life. And so we go back deeper into the subconscious. And the subconscious now, think of it as a loaf of bread with all of these slices that are create these neural pathways to behavior. That and behavior is our how we act in the world, our thought processes, our belief system, and our self belief, right? And so, at any time throughout our uh, experiences, when we're taught we're less than, even if you think you've overcome them, but you feel depressed or anxious or insecure in relationships or in life as a whole, then the inner child, or what we would say the root chakra energy that creates safety and stability, is not healed yet. We can move into that energy, basically rescue that child, so that the inner child in all of the trauma has an opportunity to settle in and settle down, to relax. So the inner child can feel safe. So the adult now will sense that potential that I already sense it. They know it's there. They know they want to do something and they haven't taken that step. And they're like, why? Why haven't I taken that next step? What part of me, what part of my belief system isn't allowing me to unfold? Well, when the true self, the authentic self feels safe, it emerges and your potential will unfold. But we have to integrate all of the different aspects of the psyche, the inner child, the inner judge, that negative voice that says, you're not good enough, you can't do this, or the inner saboteur who's like, well, you know what? We'll start that tomorrow. I'm just going to have a cocktail now and relax. I deserve that. Okay. It's actually, in some cases, okay. In other cases, it is sabotage. We have to be able to differentiate. But we get all of those different aspects, including the ego, who is grossly misunderstood, in my opinion. Get them all integrated on the same page, feeling safe, calm, and relaxed. The true self begins to emerge. And with that, your potential. You might find yourself then shifted, as if you woke up one day in a new timeline where you were relaxed, where you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, where you can see your next step, or you feel brave enough, safe enough to take that next step because, you know, you only really fail when you quit. I mean, up until then, it's just trying, right? And you have to just keep trying. You got to figure it out. It's experience. And it's with experience that we learn. We have to make some mistakes. It's okay. I've made so many mistakes. I've learned so much from them. I should probably make a few more. We're going to benefit from them. And like I alluded to in the beginning of our interview here today, the consciousness is continuous. The human is, by definition of the word, a light embodied being. Hue, again, is the word we use to measure the density or saturation of light. Man comes from the word manifestation, which means to come into the physical or to be embodied. A human, it's my doggy, a human is a light embodied being, and race and gender are subcategories of the definition of what we are. And when you begin to understand what you are, you begin to understand the power that you have, and you'll actually begin to understand on the most deepest and highest of levels why there may be opposing forces in trying to prevent us from hitting that potential or from allowing us to unfold or to keep us divided. Because when you see the potential of the human, you realize that we can do anything. And we've done incredible, beautiful things, art and great music. We have a beautiful world to live in. There's wonderful poetry and song and stories and animals. Piper, don't do that. Sorry.
Piper's ready for you to go play with her.
Yeah, dogs will be dogs. Yeah, she's a good
That's
girl.
right. That's right. Well, I
Lucy
just want to
didn't come and
say,
knock the computer over.
absolutely, this has been amazing talk. Well, you and I have some amazing talks when we get together anyway. It's a lot of very similar conversations, but I just love listening to you and then your insight on things. If people want to get a hold of you, or are they interested? I have a feeling there's going to be a lot because many people, I was like, I'm going to have her on the show, I promise, and I'm going to make sure you know how to get a hold of her. So if they want to get a hold of you, how should people reach out to you?
The website at trueyouhypnotherapy.com. Can also reach out on Facebook. I have a True You Hypnotherapy Facebook page and a personal page just under Laurie McDonald. I'm on a couple of the social media platforms and we try to monitor those to the best of our ability, but it's difficult because I'm in session a lot and then when I don't really feel like being on the computer too much. But yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Check us out at trueyouhypnotherapy.com. We have an event page and a media page, and we do have an upcoming workshop where I will be teaching people how to begin to master the mind body, to balance the chakra energy. I'll be demonstrating some inner child work so that we can move forward in creating and propagating the deepest of healing for all of us.
nice. Well, I'll tell you, I think we definitely need it. Corey says, need info on your show, Lori.
Okay, it's called Alien Files Reopened. It's like I said in Europe right now, not in America. But if you go to Blaze TV or blaze.com, you'll see all their shows come up. They're owned by A&E and they're streaming like a Netflix in Europe. The first show is free to watch right now, and you'll really enjoy it.
And when do you think that they'll be available here in the U.S.?
That I have no idea about. That stuff's outside of my wheelhouse.
Gotcha. All right. Well, go get your VPN or go get your, free chance to go watch one of the episodes, and we'll keep you updated. Obviously, when it does get announced that it'll be in the U.S., I will make sure to put up a post and share that information as well. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. It's
My pleasure.
all these years, and absolutely, I feel exactly the same, if not even closer to you than I did when we first started. And I think it'll be a friendship that lasts a lifetime. So
Of course.
thank you very much, Love. All
Thank
right,
you.
everybody, with that being said, we are out of time. We will see you next week. George should be back. We're not sure what we're going to talk about next week yet, but tune into the page and you will see. Everybody that showed up, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We've seen actually a lot of familiar faces in the chat room, and we always appreciate support from our friends. So with that being said, make sure to check it out next week. I'll see you next Wednesday,
Yep.
6 p.m. Good night, everybody.